Imagine for a moment the greatest naval power the modern world has ever seen. A fleet capable of projecting force across every ocean on the planet. 11 aircraft carrier strike groups, destroyers equipped with radars that can detect threats hundreds of kilometers away, submarines invisible beneath the water, and thousands of aircraft capable of striking targets on any continent. For decades, this military machine was built around a simple idea: whoever controls the oceans controls global trade. But there is one place on the map where that logic begins to break down. A point so small that on many maps it looks like nothing more than a minor detail. A narrow corridor of water, barely 30 or 40 kilometers wide. That place is the Strait of Hormuz. And to understand why it is one of the most important locations on the planet, you need to understand an uncomfortable reality. Nearly 1/5 of the oil consumed by the global economy passes through this narrow passage. Every day, dozens of massive oil tankers cross these waters, carrying millions of barrels of crude from the Persian Gulf to Asia, Europe, and the Americas. It is, quite literally, an artery of the global economy. But what makes this place truly unique is not only the volume of oil that flows through it. What truly matters is who lives right next to it. On the northern coast of the strait lies Iran, and that geography changes the rules of the game entirely. For decades, many analysts assumed that in the event of a crisis, the United States could easily guarantee the security of this region. After all, the imbalance in military power between the two countries appears enormous. A global superpower with the most advanced navy in the world, facing a regional state with far fewer resources. But when military strategists study the map more carefully, a troubling conclusion begins to emerge. In the Strait of Hormuz, geography is not just a stage, it is a weapon. And it is a weapon that favors the actor who controls the coastline. Because even though the strait may appear wide from above, the enormous ships that transport oil cannot simply sail anywhere they want. They require deep and secure channels to avoid running aground. This means that almost all maritime traffic is forced into two very specific corridors. One lane for ships entering the Persian Gulf, another for ships leaving it. Each of these shipping lanes is only a few kilometers wide. In practical terms, this means that the world's most important energy artery is compressed into a corridor narrower than many highways on land. For military strategists, this type of geography creates something very particular: a predictable transit zone. Any vessel attempting to cross the strait must follow exactly the same path. It cannot suddenly change direction, it cannot accelerate rapidly, it cannot disappear from radar. An oil tanker carrying millions of barrels of crude is one of the largest moving objects on Earth. Some stretch more than 300 meters in length, and their speed rarely exceeds 30 kilometers per hour. In other words, they are slow giants moving through a narrow corridor that everyone knows. This geographical reality has been studied for decades by Iranian strategists, because Iran understood something many powers throughout history have learned. When you cannot match your rival in direct force, you must change the rules of the game. It is not about building the same fleet as your opponent. It is about finding exactly the point where their advantage begins to lose value. And in the case of the Strait of Hormuz, that point is asymmetric warfare. While the United States developed massive aircraft carriers and next-generation destroyers designed for the open ocean, Iran began building a completely different doctrine, a doctrine designed specifically for the terrain it would need to defend, the strait. And the central idea was simple: saturate the system.
Instead of trying to destroy an entire fleet, the objective would be to make the cost of keeping the trade route open unbearably high. To achieve this, Iran developed several relatively simple tools. The first are anti-ship missiles launched from land. Along Iran's coastline lie mountains, caves, and small coves that create natural positions to conceal missile batteries. From these locations, a missile can be launched toward the strait in a matter of seconds. The distance is so short that the reaction time for ships can be extremely limited. But missiles are not the only tool. Another critical element of this strategy involves naval mines. Mines are surprisingly simple weapons. Essentially, they are explosive devices placed underwater, waiting for a ship to pass nearby. Their production cost is relatively low, yet the impact they can have on maritime traffic is enormous. Because when a single mine is detected in a major shipping route, international protocol requires that traffic be halted until the area is cleared. And clearing a minefield is an extremely slow process. Specialized ships, underwater drones, and divers must work methodically, centimeter by centimeter. During that time, commerce stops, and every day the strait remains closed can represent billions of dollars in losses for the global economy. But perhaps the most interesting tool within this strategy is the use of drones. In recent years, Iran has developed relatively inexpensive drones capable of traveling long distances and striking naval targets. Some of these drones cost only tens of thousands of dollars. Yet to intercept them, a modern warship may need to fire missiles that cost hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. This creates a strange economic imbalance. From a financial perspective, the defender may end up spending far more than the attacker. And in modern warfare, cost matters. Because if defending a route costs more than the value of the trade passing through it, the system eventually becomes unsustainable. But the military dimension is not the only factor at play. There is another silent actor that can ultimately decide the fate of the strait: insurance companies. Every tanker that sails through the Strait of Hormuz carries cargo worth tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars. If a ship is damaged or sunk, the financial losses can be enormous. For that reason, shipping companies rely on specialized insurance coverage to operate in these waters. But when a region becomes an active conflict zone, insurers may suddenly raise risk premiums to extreme levels, or they may refuse coverage altogether. And when that happens, something occurs that no navy can forcibly change. Ships stop sailing. Not because it is physically impossible to cross the strait, but because the financial risk becomes too high. This is one of the most fascinating aspects of Iran's strategic approach. The goal is not necessarily to completely close the strait. Sometimes it is enough to create uncertainty. An isolated attack, a single mine discovered in the water, a drone striking a vessel. Each of these events raises the perceived level of risk in the market, and as risk rises, the global economic system begins to react. Oil prices climb, transportation costs surge, financial markets grow tense. At that moment, political pressure begins to build in every country that depends on that energy supply. This dynamic creates a strategic paradox. The most powerful navy in the world can patrol the strait. It can escort ships. It can deploy advanced defensive systems. But it cannot eliminate uncertainty. And in a global economic system built on confidence, uncertainty can be as powerful as an entire fleet. This is one of the reasons why the Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most sensitive points on the planet, because it reveals a fundamental reality of modern geopolitics. Power doesn't always belong to the actor with the greatest resources. Sometimes it belongs to the actor who controls the system's critical choke point. In the 21st century, wars are no longer fought only with massive armies. They are fought with logistics, economics, and geography. And on that chessboard, the Strait of Hormuz has become one of the most important pieces in play. A place where a corridor of water barely 30 kilometers wide can influence energy prices, shape the decisions of global powers, and affect the stability of the entire global economy. Because in the end, the strategic lesson of Hormuz is clear. The strongest player is not always the one with the biggest weapon. Sometimes it is the one who understands exactly where to strike so that the entire system begins to tremble.